Israel is often described by its critic as the great colonizer of the Middle East, the one Jewish state in the world, the oasis in the democratic desert, the country that has no choice but to win all of its wars or cease to exist, is accused of being the aggressive imperialist. But if the events of the last 24 hours or so have proved anything, it is that Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard is the real colonizer of the Middle East. It began in 1979 when Ayatollah Khomeini led the Islamic Revolution. This condemned a nation of great history and promise to an existence of misery and backwardness. Since then, Iran has ruined the lives of its citizens at home. One of its former presidents, one who died in a helicopter crash, who was known as the Butcher of Tehran because he ordered so many mass political executions. But abroad, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard has become an increasingly expansionist, imperialist and colonizing power. Israel's critics want you to believe this war is Israel versus innocent Palestinians. But in truth, this is a war between Israel and Iran, between the West and the burgeoning axis of Iran and its allies. Iran has proxies in nearly every region in the Middle East, in Gaza in the form of Hamas, in Lebanon in the form of Hezbollah, in Yemen in the form of the Houthis, but also in Iraq and Syria. What is the common denominator in all of these places? Theocratic fascism for all of its subjects. On the BBC last night, this was said.
We've been in this cause for 12 months now of constantly red lines being crossed, mostly by the Israelis. The Hezbollah and Iran have played it fairly rationally, trying to be very cautious in how they respond, trying to leave off-ramps where they could. The Netanyahu government has kind of lost the opportunity at every sort of junction to use an off-ramp that was given to them.
Well, that was absolute madness, but never mind. The Islamic Republic of Iran is a regime of religious fanaticism. It uses proxies to spread its extreme millenarian view of Islam. It kills people. It pays its proxies to kill people, to try and kill people who live in Israel. But why should we in the UK care about Iran or the Middle East? Is it a small country a long way away, as Chamberlain said of Czechoslovakia? Well, in March, a London-based Iranian journalist was stabbed outside his home, with the suspects fleeing the United Kingdom immediately afterwards. It was also the Islamic Republic that put a fatwa on the head of British author Salman Rushdie, which culminated in his near murder in 2022. Things come back to Britain, in addition to instability, having all sorts of risks in the Middle East, where, of course, we get a great deal of oil from. But Iran's desire to harm extends far beyond Israel. Iran is an enemy of the West, and Israel is fighting this war on our behalf. It is our proxy. If Iran wins, we cannot be so naive to think that it will end with Israel. We are all in this war together, which is why we must support Israel in its war against the true colonizer of the Middle East, the Islamic Republic of Iran. As always, let me know your views, mailmog at gbnews.com. But I'm pleased now to be joined by the Israeli-Lebanese activist, Jonathan Elkhoury, who is in Tel Aviv. Jonathan, what is happening in Tel Aviv at the moment after the 200 ballistic missiles rained down recently?
Well, Jake, thank you very much for having me. You're now catching me in the middle of Rosh Hashanah dinner. This is a Jewish holiday to celebrate the New Year's. And this is something that I've been invited to at my friend's house because I'm a Christian and I'm a non-Jew. And this is how we continue on living. This is something that is really particular for us. The Islamic Republic of Iran yesterday crossed another major line while escalating the situation, sending about 180 ballistic missiles towards all of Israel's citizens. I don't know if you noticed that, but Israel is Jewish. There are Christians, there are Muslims, there are Bedouins, and all of us were a target by the Islamic Republic of Iran yesterday. And the IDF and the Israeli Defense Forces did everything in its power in order to make sure that none of any civilians would be harmed. And this is something that we are seeing consistently since the beginning of this war. You said it right at the beginning, the Islamic Republic of Iran is not just fighting against Israel by its proxies. I was originally born in Lebanon, and I had to flee Lebanon in 2001 because of Hezbollah's occupation to South Lebanon after Israel withdrew from that territory. And that's something that I grew up with. I grew up being persecuted by the PLO at the beginning and then by Hezbollah. And this is something that you realize to understand around the world, that a lot of people don't really understand what's happening here in the Middle East. And I want to thank you for your inputs and for bringing that up to the stage.
Well, thank you, and thank you for interrupting a very important celebratory dinner, and what an honour to be invited by a family to join them for the New Year celebration. But what I wanted to ask you about is the misconception that there seems to be that nice Palestinians are being persecuted by the State of Israel, whereas the truth is that terrorists backed by Iran are trying to kill people in Israel and destroy the Israeli state. And these 180 ballistic missiles prove that, don't they? They remind people of the reality. And in this way, perhaps Iran's overplayed its hand because it's shown people what it really is.
Yeah, well, we saw that the Islamic Republic of Iran yesterday decided to join by itself to this ongoing war that was launched by its proxies. Hamas started this war on October 7th, infiltrating Israeli territories, killing about 1,200 innocent children, women, men, executing people in the streets, also kidnapping more than 240 Israeli civilians and foreigners that were whether partying or at their homes with pajamas. There are still 101 captives in captivity in Gaza that are held by Hamas terrorist organization. On October 8th, Hezbollah, that is another Iranian proxy in Lebanon, decided also to start firing rockets and harming the majority of the people who are living in the northern of Israel, where about more than 80,000 Israelis are being dislocated since October 8th because of Hezbollah's aiming at their homes and at their bases. And that's something that also, again, you can see by the Israeli response, whether it was to Gaza, whether it was to Hezbollah territories inside of Lebanon, that at the end of the day, every target that Israel hit is a target that is responding to against a terror organization. For example, in Lebanon, you have Lebanese politicians, and because I'm Lebanese myself, I follow a lot of what's going on inside of Lebanon, and because I had to flee, I'm really concerned for, this country that used to be called the Switzerland of the Middle East, the pearl of the world, that now a lot of politicians in Lebanon since October 8th are saying, why are we getting ourselves involved in a war that has nothing to do with any Lebanese cause? This is what you can hear about in Lebanon.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. I'd better let you get back to your dinner, but thank you so much for joining me this evening. Well, I'm now joined by Iranian-born investigative journalist Potkin Azarmehr. Thank you so much for coming in. Has Iran now shot its bolt? Is there more that Iran can do beyond these 180 ballistic missiles?
Iran doesn't seem to have the economy for a war, and I think it seems that Israel has more options at its disposals. It's right on top of the intelligence war with Iran. It has a superior air force, and it can target Iran's oil installations, infrastructures, and in the worst-case scenario, even the nuclear installations. But Iran has always been relying on its proxies groups, and the thing is, the proxy groups, for the first time, are being dismantled.
And it was quite stupid, wasn't it, of the US government a year ago to release $6 billion to the Iranian government, which it's had the ability to spend on arms and on its proxies.
Oh, it gave them a lifeline. I mean, Iran was down on its knees, and suddenly they got this handful of cash. They couldn't believe it themselves. And to make it worse, I remember John Kerry was being stupid enough to say, Iran's not going to spend that on its proxies. It's going to spend on its economy, on its people. How naive can you get a politician of that level?
And the President of the United States, President Biden, has said he doesn't want Israel to hit the nuclear sites in Iran. Don't you think that if they did, and that Iran as a nuclear power was postponed for another few years, that would actually be a thoroughly good thing?
I think Israel has other options for now, though. I think that is really a worst-case scenario, and no one wants any nuclear installations to be held. I mean, the consequences of nuclear radiation...
But isn't it very important to stop Iran becoming a nuclear power, or do you think Iran already is a nuclear power?
I think they're buying time to become a nuclear power. That's definitely on their agenda. How far they are from becoming a nuclear power, I don't know. But that is where they want to go. This is why they want to buy time. This is why the Iranian president went to the UN General Assembly meeting and was so reconciliatory, because Iran wants to buy time. But I think we've still got some time before that, Israel has options to resort to.
And is your understanding of Iran, obviously you were you were born there. What do you think will be the most sensitive things to hit beyond the nuclear sites that are in range of the Israeli military?
Well, as I said, Iran doesn't have the economy, so anything that can further collapse the economy and stop its income, so oil installations, for example, would be devastating to Iran. Which is, again, that's why I'm saying that, we've still got some way to go before hitting the nuclear installation is really the last resort, and I don't think we're there yet. But as long as Iran doesn't have the economy, they won't get into a engage in a full-scale war. They will rely on their proxy groups, as they have before, but their proxy groups have been dismantled now as well.
And the Iranian government looks to be, from the outside, a very strong, very aggressive, stable administration. Is that the reality? And what do the people of Iran think about the government that they've got?
The overwhelming majority of the people are against the regime. There's ample evidence for that. But don't forget, even a minority 5% that are armed and organised and strong can rule the majority of the people. I mean, let's not forget Soviet Union. Only 2% of the population were members of the Communist Party, but they could manage to put that hold on the people. And until the collapse, I don't think anyone could predict when the collapse was going to happen. They looked strong as well. But in reality, they weren't. The economy collapsed. And I think that's what will happen in Iran as well.
And the collapse in the Soviet Union came from the top because Gorbachev ceased to believe in communism and then it all fell away. It doesn't look as if there's any prospect of the Ayatollahs stopping believing in having an Islamic state that will be a very rigorous theocratic state.
There is a lot of internal division within the regime. And the smaller the boat gets that they can jump on, then the more infighting there will be. Don't bank on this facade at the moment that they're strong and they're sort of like united, and they're not. There's the reason I think the Israelis are getting on top of the intelligence war is precisely because they're exploiting the dissatisfaction from within the Iranian regime, from within the security apparatus.
So they understand what's going on in detail within the Iranian government, within the Iranian security services, and are then using that to their advantage.
Much better than the Western governments, I believe, yeah. They seem to be more clued on about what is going on in Iran, and they're having very good intelligence, it seems.
Wasn't one of the silliest things the West did, that deal with Iran that gave Iran lots of money, which has simply, over the last few years, allowed them to build up their resources? And wasn't Donald Trump right to cancel it?
Well, again, the overwhelming majority of the Iranians supported Trump.
Interesting,
yeah.
Right.
It might be surprising to some of the Western commentators, but they thought that he was the only US president that actually stood up to the regime. But apart from Western governments appeasing the Iranian regime, they've also allowed the Iranian regime to build its influence and its network of outlets within these countries. I mean, recently the Policy Exchange think tank produced an 87-page report on Iran's influence in Britain. 87 pages. And even that 87 pages didn't include all of Iranian outlets within the UK.
So, as I was saying in my introduction, it matters to us. Just a final thought, it's occurred to me. It's Jimmy Carter's 100th birthday, and he, of course, was president when there were all those hostages taken in Tehran by the Ayatollah Khamenei's government. Anyway, thank you very much, Potkin, for coming in.